This is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. I have another exciting episode for you today. We're here with Sharon Greenspan. Now, Sharon has been into the raw foods lifestyle for the past 7 years, and more importantly than being into raw foods, she's got into raw foods because of emotional eating challenges. And I know many of you guys out there may have emotional eating challenges. She's a raw food lifestyle coach, and today we're going to share her 3 best tips on how to overcome emotional eating. But first, I want you guys to learn more about Sharon, what she's been through, and then we'll get to some of her tips that can help you with your emotional eating if you're still having challenges. So Sharon, how did you get into the raw foods diet, and what was your situation that you had to learn about all this?
Well, I really never learned how to identify my emotions or express my emotions in a healthy way, so I covered them up with food, especially sugar, carbohydrates, any kind of food that would make me feel better. And I realized after getting some medical issues, being overweight, that was not how to deal with emotions. It wasn't productive for me, it wasn't productive for the people around me. So that's kind of how I came into raw foods. I had to make some changes because I was not in a good place.
Wow, so after you changed your diet, what did you notice? Were you more calm, mellow?
Yeah, I went through a period of really bad depression, and when I changed my diet, the depression lifted. I was able to feel a range of emotions. I stopped being angry. I stopped being depressed. I had more energy, and when I had more energy, I could have a more joyful life.
Wow, that's one of the things I would totally agree with. Literally, we are what you eat, and I know you guys have heard that before, and when you're eating the wrong foods, we're giving the wrong fuels to our body, and we're not going to work perfectly, and more importantly, our brain's not going to work perfectly and have messed up thoughts is what I like to say. So next, I'm going to get into asking Sharon her 3 top tips so that you can end your emotional eating today. So Sharon, what would be your 3 top tips to help people with emotional eating?
Great. I always say there are 3 places you need to make the changes, and it needs to be in this order. First, you need to change here in your heart. You need to have a really compelling reason why you want to make this change. That creates the motivation, and when you're motivated, the commitment comes naturally. The second place you need to change is here, your head, your thoughts, your beliefs. We're socialized to believe so many different things about food, and they may or may not be true. So when we have clear motivation, we can change our belief system. And then what you put in your mouth, it's really easy to change that.
Great, Sharon. So what's one way that somebody could change their heart and have clear motivation to start this process?
Well, it's not always a do-it-yourself program, so sometimes talking to someone can be helpful to motivate that. I had a client, for example, he really wanted to. He'd already had a heart attack. He'd made some changes, but he said, man, you know what, Sharon, I'm Italian. I gotta have my pasta. And I said, okay, well, you know what? You talk glowingly about your granddaughter. Do you want to see her graduate high school? He said, yeah. I said, do you want to see her graduate college? He said, yeah. I said, Carl, do you want to walk her down the aisle one day at her wedding? And he stopped and he almost started crying and he said, yeah. And he called me 4 months later and he said, guess what? I am still on the program.
Wow, that's amazing. So, the power of your thoughts and what you think about and having, once again, a motivation to do it. I can't tell actually how many people I've actually personally coached who had high blood pressure, heart disease, and got them over on a better diet so that they could see their daughter, graduate school and not even seeing them walk down the aisle or anything. Wow. So what would be another tip to help you change your brain? Because that's the next step, right?
Right. So changing your belief system, really question the things that you hear, do research, and once you're in touch with your body, think about it. Does it resonate for you?
Awesome. And then the final step was what? Changing actually what you're eating.
Changing what you're eating, right. And it's not necessarily about making substitutions. So if you're trying to give up sugar, it's not that you want to use something in a pretty colored packet instead. It's finding the underlying emotion. Why are you reaching for that sugar? Most of the time when people reach for sugar, they're either bored or they're lonely. So let's deal with those parts.
So if you're bored, what should you do?
So if you're bored, go get a hobby. Go experiment with some things. Find out what your joy is. Think back to childhood. When you were 5 years old or 7-year-old, what really did you love to do? Was it ride your bike, do jigsaw puzzles, play?
Wow. But what about if you're lonely?
Okay.
How do you solve that?
If you're lonely, join a group. Sometimes it can be going out to your local shop and being around other people. That can really help lift that depression and loneliness that comes about. Join a Raw Foods meetup group. Go meet some great people. Learn some new recipes while you're at it. Yeah.
Wow, that's great. It sounds like to me that you just want to get people's minds off the food because, I mean, yes, we need food to survive and subsist, but there's so many other things in life we could be doing, you know, going to raw food retreats or vegan, you know, conferences or traveling the world, but anything besides just sitting there being depressed and thinking about food, you know, get your mind off that. There's so many other things and beautiful things to think about in the world. So the next thing I want to get into is actually a book that Sharon wrote, and actually this is one of the best books I've seen on emotional eating, because not only does it have to do with emotional eating, but it's integrated with raw food. So if you're a raw foodist that does emotional eating, this is definitely the book you want to get. It's Eating Your Way to Health workbook, and it's not just a book, it's a workbook. And I love workbook format books because they actually get you to read, and then they actually get you to work in the book to work through your issues. And you know, I really never really like books that you just read because it's like a one-way thing. This is actually a two-way thing. It's almost interactive, but the book won't actually talk back to you. And it also has recipes, you know, built in to help you overcome some of your emotional issues. So would you like to say anything about your book here, Sharon?
Yeah, and I wrote this book to be like coaching in a book. And I wrote it because what I found after working with clients is that 95% of the time, people were eating because they were angry, tired, lonely, bored, and stressed. And about 5% of the time because they were hungry. So you need to find out what hunger feels like and then deal with the emotions in a healthy way. And that's what this book helps you to do. Identify the emotions and deal with them in an appropriate way without food.
Wow, that's amazing. So once again, if you have emotional eating issues, definitely encourage you to get this book. So Sharon, how would somebody purchase this book from you, get a hold of you if they want to do personal raw lifestyle coaching with you?
Right. They can call me. My phone is 301-816-0752. That's my cell phone. Call it anytime. Or check my website, wildsuccess.us. I like the us because we're in it together.
All right. Us, we're in it together. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed this episode learning more about emotional eating and how to help that with raw foods. Once again, my name is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. We'll see you next time, and remember, keep eating your fresh fruits and vegetables. They're the best.